Hey guys, it's Sandeep from RevAtlas and welcome to the camera comparison between the Poco X2 and Realme X2 smartphones. Now, we have been working on this for a while and I know a lot of you have been requesting it, and I'm sorry for the delay, but we wanted to get some great samples for you guys out there, and that's why it took some time extra. Before we get started, please do make sure to hit the subscribe button. Thanks to glazedink.com for sponsoring this video, and please do make sure to check out their website for the best screen protection for your smartphone. It's not easy to make a good screen protector, and it's even tougher to make one with curved edges, but that's exactly what Glazed does with its 2.5D curved edge screen protectors that extend from edge to edge of the phone's glass and not just covering the display like other brands. You can get it for the Poco X2 and practically any other smartphone available on the market right now by following the link in the description below or going to glazedink.com. Please make use of coupon code ATLAS to get 10% off on your order as well. Now let's get this video started. On paper, the camera setups on these phones seem to be identical. They both have 4 cameras consisting of two 2-megapixel cameras, one of which is a depth sensor and the other being a macro camera. They also have an 8-megapixel f2.2 ultra-wide-angle camera and a primary 64-megapixel camera. However, digging deeper reveals that the Realme X2 has 64 megapixel 1x1.72-inch Samsung GW1 sensor with f1.8 aperture, while the Poco X2 has a 64 megapixel 1x1.7-inch Sony IMX686 sensor, which is just a bit bigger but with a slightly smaller f1.9 aperture. The minimum focusing distance is also different for the macro cameras on both, as it's 2cm for the Poco X2 while it's 4cm for the Realme X2 cameras. The shots from the Poco X2 have much higher level of detail than the Realme X2 shots, and this is very evident when you pixel peep. At a glance, they both seem practically identical, but zooming in will reveal a big difference, and this is also evident in the file sizes. The processed JPEGs are roughly 2 times bigger on the Poco compared to a Realme, and you'll also have lesser sharpness fall off towards the sides and corners of the image on the Poco, while the Realme exhibits high level of fall off, particularly in areas which aren't required to be emphasized or not in focus. In terms of dynamic range, they both are very good, but the Realme X2 is more aggressive and manages to bring back a bit more from the shadows and highlights, although at times you do notice some halo effects at the edges, and at times the X2 looks washed out due to the lack of contrast and muted colors when the HDR goes overboard. But other than these instances, the Realme X2 has generally higher levels of saturation and greens look more yellowish, while the Poco X2 shots are more natural in comparison. You can also capture photos in 64 megapixel resolution instead of the default pixel bin photos. Here the Realme X2 does better in terms of sharpness because, as we noted in the Realme X2 camera review and other Realme phones, the sharpness seems better off in full resolution samples and not on the pixel bin ones, while for most other phones with higher resolution cameras it's usually the other way around, including the Poco X2. But here as well you can see the fall off in sharpness, especially near the corners on the Realme, and file size is again around 3 times that of the pixel bin 16 megapixel photos, but that itself is 2 times bigger on the Poco compared to the Realme. One of the major benefits of the Poco X2 compared to the Realme X2 is the ability to capture raw photos, which definitely does give an advantage, especially to those people who want to tweak their images after capturing them to get the best quality possible. When it comes to low light images, the Poco X2 again is very similar to the daylight photos. It has more sharpness and better detail as well as better color accuracy. The Realme X2 gets the color accuracy very wrong, especially when there's a huge difference between the highlights and shadows in low light situations, and in terms of the overall saturation itself, it's a bit more boosted and a bit more yellowish compared to the Poco X2 itself. But what's different is that the Realme X2 is able to capture faster shutter speed, which helps in situations where there are leaves or very fast moving objects involved, especially in these photos as you can see, but the leaves are captured better by the Realme X2. We recommend using night mode on both the phones to get the best out of the camera possible, but even the 64 megapixel mode performs fairly well if the light is not too dim. But one major advantage that the Realme X2 has is that it supports nightscape mode for the ultra wide angle camera, while there is no night mode for the ultra wide angle camera on the Poco X2. Now, the quality with the ultra wide angle camera is poor by default, and even the night mode doesn't give truly amazing images, but having an option is definitely good. When it comes to well-lit conditions, the ultra-wide-angle camera is better on the Poco X2 thanks to better sharpness, detail, contrast, and overall less noise within the frame. They're about the same in terms of dynamic range, which is not too great to be honest, and is definitely better to use the primary camera whenever you can instead of using the ultra-wide-angle camera unless to capture a dramatic perspective or field of view. In terms of portrait mode too, the Poco X2 does better with better edge detection and detail on the portion in focus compared to a Realme X2. The Realme X2 is not bad but is not as good as the Poco X2. In terms of macro cameras, the focusing distance is closer at 2 cm on the Poco X2 as we mentioned earlier, and even in terms of the overall image quality, the macro camera is better on the Poco X2 thanks to processing, despite both packing practically identical hardware. Also, the 4 cm focusing distance on the Realme X2 is not quite as close as you could get with the Poco X2 itself. At the front, you get a 32 megapixel f2 sensor on the Realme X2, while you get a 20 megapixel f2.2 sensor and 2 megapixel depth sensor on the Poco X2. Despite the higher resolution, the Realme X2 shots are actually noticeably softer and actually dull looking compared to the Poco X2 shots, which actually have better contrast and better sharpness as well as detail. One thing that we disliked about the Poco X2 camera was that Beautify was on by default and you had to manually turn it off each and every time. This was true for both the regular mode as well as the portrait mode, which was again better on the Poco X2 thanks to superior edge detection as well as better sharpness on the portion and focus. In terms of video, you can get up to 4K 30fps on both the phones, but only the Poco X2 supports EIS at this resolution, while both can do 1080p 30fps with EIS as well. Both phones record slightly saturated looking videos, but the EIS is much more smoother and better handled on the Poco X2. In terms of front-facing camera video, however, it's quite different on both, considering that the Realme X2 does better here thanks to EIS on the front-facing camera, which gives it a more refined and polished look, while there is no EIS on the Poco X2 front-facing camera video. Hopefully this is something that they can add with a software update, considering that the video experience for the rear camera is definitely better, but we will have to wait and see whether they actually do bring that in. But considering how they did actually add a lot of features with updates to the Poco F1, I think this could happen with the Poco X2 as well. In terms of audio as well, the front-facing camera video is better with the Realme X2 compared to the Poco X2. This is the front-facing camera on the Poco X2 capturing 1080p 30fps video. Let me know what you guys think about the overall quality, the dynamic range, how well it's picking my voice in this scenario, and the overall stabilization as well. Front-facing camera on the Realme X2 capturing 1080p 30fps video. Let me know what you guys think about the overall sharpness, the dynamic range, how well it's picking up my voice in this particular scenario, and the stabilization as well. Therefore, when it comes to the overall cameras on the smartphones, the Poco X2 is definitely a step ahead in almost each and every single aspect compared to Realme X2, except when it comes to the front-facing camera video, where the EIS does give the Realme X2 an edge. Hopefully this is something that Poco decide to add over with software updates, and that would make it better even in that aspect compared to the Realme X2. If you're looking for better cameras on a smartphone, I would say that the IMX686 in particular on the Poco X2 is definitely superior, and coupled with RAW support, better portrait, better sharpness, better detail, etc., I would say that the Poco X2 is definitely the best camera phone under 20k right now. Thanks for watching this video. Please don't forget to hit the subscribe button. See you again in the next one.